are you really? It's a question that can send you on a search that lasts your entire life. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating fictional manuscript that looks at this question not as some simple thing you can just answer, but as this deep, complex, lifelong investigation. It's a journey into the very nature of the self. So, the narrator of this manuscript, she frames her life's work, her diary, with this incredible metaphor. She sees it as an archaeological dig. And the goal? Well, it's to dig down through all the layers of life, all the experiences, to find some buried, authentic, original self. It's a really powerful way to think about self-discovery, right? And then, right out of the gate, the whole thing gets flipped on its head with this question. It completely challenges that whole idea of being an archaeologist of the self. What if you spend your whole life digging for something that just doesn't exist? This is the core tension that's going to guide us through this entire explainer. Okay, so our narrator's main tool for this big dig was her diary. And her whole idea, her intention, was to create a life of absolute transparency. She imagined it like building a house made of glass, where every single thought, every feeling, every little action was totally visible and clear. But, this project of total transparency, it didn't really bring the clarity she was hoping for. Not at all. Instead, that glass house turned into a hall of mirrors. Every entry, every memory, it didn't just show a single truth. It reflected 1,000 other versions, multiplying and distorting the self until finding the original became pretty much impossible. And this leads to a pretty wild, kind of dizzying thought. What if there is no original self behind all those reflections? What if the self isn't a thing to be found, but it's just the act of reflecting itself? The process of seeing. This question, it just changes the entire game. So that brings us to our second big idea here. If there's only reflecting, then maybe we don't find the self at all. Maybe we actually create it. Maybe we write it into existence through the stories we tell ourselves and, of course, through the relationships we have. The narrator kind of brings us to life with this dreamlike conversation she has with a really important figure from her past, a woman named June. And in this vision, June doesn't just show up to say hi. She comes back with a stunning accusation that cuts right to the heart of our narrator's entire life's mission. And boom, there it is. This quote just lays out the central conflict perfectly. June points out this huge paradox. The narrator basically invented a character, a version of June, and then spent her whole life chasing that creation like it was some objective, real thing she could find. I mean, how often do we do that in our own lives? This really highlights the narrator's big realization. Her diary, her written life, it wasn't just a record of her lived life. It became its own thing, a parallel reality. It was this curated, edited, perfectly preserved story that, a lot of the time, felt way more intense, more real, more vivid than the messy, forgettable first draft of just living. Okay, so if the self is a story that we're creating, then what's it actually made of? Well, the manuscript suggests it's just a collection of performances, all the different roles we play, kind of like a set of Russian nesting dolls. Our narrator starts listing them out, just a few of the many women she's been: the daughter, the wife, the lover, the artist, even the liar. And each one is like a different costume, a different script. The self, from this angle, isn't one single thing. It's a mix, a composite of all these different parts. And here comes that moment of existential dread. You keep opening the dolls, right? You're digging through all these layers of roles and performances, and you're expecting to find some essential core you at the very center. But what if you get to that very last one, and there's nothing inside? Just hollowness. But right as we're about to hit that moment of despair, the narrator completely reframes it. What if that hollowness at the center isn't a bad thing? What if it's not a failure to find yourself? What if it's actually a capacity, like an open space that allows for creativity and for change? Kind of like the hollow body of a violin is what lets it make music. This brings us to a new kind of wisdom, the kind that maybe only comes with age. It's a whole new definition of transparency. It's no longer about making sure everyone can see you perfectly. It's about seeing through the illusion that you're some kind of solid, fixed self in the first place. In a simple conversation, the narrator has this huge breakthrough. Think about all the energy we spend looking for our true self and then defending it. It's exhausting. But the moment you let go of the idea that such a thing even exists, you're free. There's no fortress left to defend, no single identity you have to protect. So the goal just completely shifts. It's not about putting on a performance for an audience anymore. It's about becoming permeable, porous. It's about letting the boundaries between you and the world, between your past self and your present self, just soften into this fluid, open, always changing process. So, this whole journey of taking apart the self as an object leads us to a final, really profound takeaway. It's a powerful new way of defining what a self even is. And here it is. The self isn't a noun, it's a verb. It's not some static thing we have or that we can find. It's a continuous action we perform, a practice we are engaged in. Every single moment, we self. We are constantly creating who we are through our choices, our words, and what we do. And this is the great equalizer, isn't it? That feeling you get sometimes that you don't have a script, that you're just figuring it all out as you go. Well, that's not some personal failure. According to this manuscript, that is the universal human condition. We are all just improvising our lives, making up our story in real time. And that brings us to the end. If we're all storytellers, constantly narrating ourselves into being, then we're left with this one last, really empowering challenge. The goal isn't to find some authentic story. It's to live and tell a compelling one. So it turns the question away from, who am I? And it asks us instead, what story are you choosing to create right now?